Hello and welcome to Season 2 of AI Unveiled with me, Gaurav Kotak. Today, I'm excited to speak with Deepanshu Arora, co-founder and CEO of Toddle. Toddle is an AI-powered teaching and learning platform used by over 1,500 K-12 or primary schools. In today's episode, we dive into how AI can reduce a teacher's workload, the opportunities for personalization, and generally how AI will shape the education industry in the years to come. We also discuss best practices of running a global SaaS platform from India, as well as the power of embracing and building a community that I think is especially valuable for vertical SaaS platforms. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hey, Deepanshu, welcome to the AI Unveiled podcast. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Gaurav.
You know, it's perfect timing. I just spent the last 3 hours attending 2 primary school tours for my daughter. So it's like perfect timing to speak to you today.
Interestingly, I did the same last week. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe to just kick things off, can you give us a brief summary of what Toddle does?
Toddle is a teaching and learning platform purpose-built for K-12 schools. So what that means is teachers use Toddle to manage all of their teaching and learning workflows. If you think of a teacher's life, a teacher does multiple things as a part of a day-to-day. So a teacher is expected to design curriculum. A teacher is expected to design assignments, assign those to students, collect back work from students, give them feedback, contribute to student portfolios, communicate with families, create report cards. So Toddle brings all of this under one umbrella, helping them manage their work better. Over the last year and a half, we have been working towards meaningfully integrating AI into our platform, and that's something that we have been getting very good feedback from our teachers on.
Awesome. And, given the AI Unveiled podcast, I'm sure we'll dive into that quite a bit. In terms of scale, how many customers does Toddle have in terms of schools and maybe in terms of the number of teachers using the app?
Yeah, so we currently work with around 2,000 schools globally. And what that translates to roughly is around 150,000 teachers on the platform and about 1.5 million students. And the interesting thing for us is that it's very spread out globally. So around 40% of our customers are in the Americas region, North, South America combined. 30% is in the Europe, Middle East, Africa region, and 30% is in Asia Pacific. So we get to work with schools and people from pretty much all around the world. I think, it doesn't mean anything, but we have customers in more than 100 countries. Obviously, we don't have depth in those 100 countries, but we do have. If I were to just count the number of countries in which our partner schools are there, it's more than 100.
One other thing I noticed when I spoke to you earlier and looking at your website, that you're really entrenched in the community. Can you talk a little bit about your initiatives and what kind of communities that you're running or part of?
Yeah, so I think it'll be helpful to give some background on how Toddle started. So we run a network of preschools here in India, and also are very actively involved with a K-12 school that is an IB school in the western part of India. And as a part of our school and preschools, we were looking to integrate technology meaningfully. For managing our own workflows, we were using 4 to 5 different platforms. It was a very clunky experience for our teachers. And we started building Toddle originally as a passion project in our own school. We have taught in the classroom. All of us as founders have spent significant time in the classroom teaching students. So we understand what it takes. And teaching is one of the hardest jobs in the world, I would say. Both of us are parents, two children each. A teacher manages 20 to 25 students on a day-to-day basis, standing on her feet for 6 to 8 hours. And apart from the teaching bit that a teacher does, there are a lot of other administrative things that they also need to do. So we have a very good appreciation for what it means to be a teacher and how hard it is to be a teacher. So right from day one at Toddle, being teachers first has been one of our core values, which is that we will truly understand a teacher's workflow and therefore create really meaningful products there. We'll create content that speaks to teachers. We'll create communities where teachers can engage with each other. And that's been the thought process for us pretty much since day one. Now, coming specifically to the community piece. So we are a very inbound-led company. And what we have done over a period of time is that we have created a lot of content, which is not around why Toddle is a great product, but which is around how can you be a better teacher, how can you design your lessons better, how can you assess student learning more authentically. So, because of that content focus and because of the teachers first focus, it has organically happened that a lot of teachers have become a part of the extended community, even though they might not be using Toddle at their schools right now, but they are pretty active consumers of the content that we create. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think just, I mean, for a modern software or SaaS application, I think being a thought leader, whether it's branding, whether it's building a community, whether it's creating thought leadership content, I think that's really important. It's not just about the software. So it's great to see that that Toddle is doing that. You already talked a little bit about how you started Toddle, the software company, by
Yeah.
starting Toddle as a network of schools before. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about your background, like even before that.
So I have a like a pretty standard background. So I grew up in a small town in India, which is in the northern part of India. Growing up, going to the IITs, going to one of the IITs became like a natural goal because that's where smart students supposedly go, and I was good at math, science, and all of the
Mhm.
subjects. So I made that into a goal. Luckily, got successful in the IIT JEE exam. So I went to IIT Kanpur and studied electrical engineering there. Although the work that I have done after IIT has got nothing to do with electrical engineering, but I did study there. They say that in India, you first become an engineer and then you figure out what you want to do in life. So I've had a very similar journey. After IIT, I worked with McKinsey for
Yeah.
a couple of years as a management consultant. Then did a small stint with the Clinton Foundation in Rwanda in Africa.
Wow.
Then worked on an election campaign in 2014, which was one of the most exciting experiences. And then for the last 10 years, I've been an entrepreneur in the education space. First started a company in the early childhood space that did not really pan out, had to shut that down. Then decided that want to continue working in education. Uh, Somehow came up with this idea that let's set up preschools. It was not my idea; it was actually my wife's idea. She's more of an educator between the two of us. We are also co-founders, and she had studied education at Brown. Then she did a master's in education from Stanford. She had taught at Stanford's Bing Nursery School, which I think is one of the best preschools in the world. So having seen all of those things, we thought let's actually set up high quality preschools in India. So we
Mhm.
set up one that became very successful very fast. Then we set up two more in two different Indian cities. And then, like I said, we wanted to integrate technology because we thought that technology could really add value to teachers' lives. And that's how Toddle started. I think for me, being in education, it's driven by personal interest at some level, but I think it really it transformed from an interest to a profession because of my wife, because she is the educator amongst the two of us. She belongs to a family of educators. In hindsight, it seems logical, but at that point of time it was doing whatever made most sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the dots always connect looking backwards, but it's
Yeah.
great to see. I think in a domain as yours, that core passion and the
Yeah.
domain expertise, which of course your wife and her family comes through in spades. But it seems like your model is you started the physical schools and then you built software to make running of the physical schools better.
Yeah.
Did you spend a bunch of years just servicing your own physical schools before you went and built the SaaS platform? So, and what was that evolution like?
Yeah, so we actually spent, I would say, a couple of years building this more as a passion project with just a team of five, six
Mhm.
people building it out, listening to feedback closely from our own teachers and parents, talking to students as well, what else they would like to see in the platform. And at that point of time, there was no intent in our minds that we will build this into a software company or we will actually take this software to other schools as well. Serendipitously, what happened was that in December of 2018, almost 6 years back now, we were
Mhm.
hosting a conference at our school where we had
Mhm.
educators from different parts of the world participating. They had a look at the platform, they really liked it, and it made a lot of sense to them as well, the what we were trying to do, because they resonated with that problem statement of having too many tools to manage their workflows. And they were like, yeah, we also face the same issue. You seem to be doing it in a really organized way. Why don't you build your software so that our schools can also take advantage of it? Why don't you build it to scale? that's when that aha moment happened for us. We
Nice.
decided to take a plunge. Took us about 6 months to go from, architecturally, from it being more like a passion project to making the architecture more scalable. Interestingly, it's called Toddle because our preschools are called Toddler's Den. And
Mm.
when we were building it out as a internal passion project, we had to put out our app on the App Store for parents and students to be able to access it. So we just ended up calling it Toddle without any thought. Then, when we had to take it out to public, we couldn't really think of a better name, so we just stuck with the name Toddle.
Nice, nice. That's some pretty tight design partnerships. Your own school, and then a kind of couple of schools that came in to exchange ideas, and then
Yeah,
literally kind of push you towards building the software platform.
yeah.
Does Toddler's Den? Are you still running Toddler's Den today?
Yes, we do. I mean,
How
I'm
big?
not very actively involved in a day-to-day basis, but I still play the managing director slash CEO sort of a role there. I'm involved in a few things, but we have like really amazing teams. So we have 3 campuses and really amazing teams at all of those campuses who run the schools on a day-to-day basis. I still really enjoy going there and spending time there, because what I've realized is that software is good, but the joy of building something physical and
Yeah.
walking into that space and seeing children having a lot of fun there and forming like really strong relationships with each other and with their teachers, that's joy at another level, which I think software can never provide.
Well, and I would imagine not just that. It's I've been in product for most of my career, and
Yeah,
the value in building empathy by truly spending time and understanding the end customer, right?
yeah,
Software is just a means of ends to achieve the goals of the end customers, and seems
yeah,
like going to the school helps achieve that.
yes,
Let's switch gears a little bit. You're in the education space. You're building a platform for teachers in the
yeah.
K-12. Maybe at just a high level, what do you think are the biggest challenges that schools and teachers face today?
I think the biggest challenges that schools face, and this is coming from actually running schools, is that it's very hard to find high quality teachers, and it's very hard to find high quality teachers at salaries that schools can afford to pay. Because if you think of it, teaching does not pay very well, not just in India but globally as well. Teachers are not very well paid. So, and it's a hard job, like we were talking about earlier. So you need to have a lot of commitment, dedication, passion to be willing to do this, and that to me is like the biggest one. And why? What's the hardest? What's the biggest challenge that teachers face? According to me, it's just this sheer amount of administrative work that they have to. There's actually an interesting study by McKinsey, which in that they interviewed around 3,000 teachers from different parts of the world. And what they found was that teachers actually spend 51% of their time on non-teaching work, which is actually administrative work. And no teacher likes doing that. Teachers become teachers to be able to spend time with students in meaningful ways, while the administrative work sometimes becomes more time taking than what their actual job is. So, to me, outside in and also having spent time in schools, those things I would say are the biggest challenge. If we can solve for making teaching really exciting as a profession, then I think schools will become much better places than what they are today.
And then, like, as you think about, longer term, say 5 years from now, what are your thoughts on how AI can solve some of these challenges, whether it's reducing the administrative burden, whether it's helping with the shortage of teachers? What's the role of that you think artificial intelligence can play?
I think so. The lens that we are taking to AI at Toddle is very teachers first, where we think of AI as enabling two things. One is it can help teachers save time.
Hmm.
So on a lot of the administrative stuff, AI can actually automate a lot of that for you. I wouldn't say that we are doing it perfectly yet on Toddle, but it's a journey that we are on, and I think we are adding more and more capabilities in our platform to help teachers do all of that administrative stuff faster. And the second thing that AI can actually do for teachers is that it can help them do things that were not possible before. And I'll just like to add a bit there. So if you if you have read anything on education, or if you have thought about education at all, one term that you would hear a lot is personalization, right? Personalization is considered to be this holy grail in education, where you are able to meet each child where they are, in terms of their interests, passions, learning abilities, and all. Uh, for a teacher who is handling 20 to 25 students at any given point of time, that's not possible. But if you have an AI assistant that can actually analyze student performance data for you, that can actually help you create different lesson plans or different assignments for each student, that can help you create or can curate content that will be most relevant for each student. That is something that is really exciting for us. And I see that earlier personalization used to be this term that would just be thrown around, but now
Mhm.
with AI, I can see a world 5 years down the line with AI models becoming better day by day, that personalization might not be that far away. Then the next big problem, or an equally big problem that needs to be solved for, is student motivation. Like, how do you motivate students to learn, and how do you really encourage curiosity in them? And if the administrative stuff and the personalization stuff is taken care of, then teachers can spend a lot of time on the motivation and inspiration, which I think is actually the most important uh, role of a teacher.
Yeah. And I think your platform covers both the early years and middle years, right?
Yeah,
Do you think there's a difference between the very early years and
yeah.
maybe kids that are a little bit older in kind of how AI can help with the on the curriculum or the teaching side?
If I were to think about it just in terms of a teacher workflow, I wouldn't say I would say that there isn't much of a difference. So whether you are teaching the early years or whether you are teaching the middle years, the principles of good teaching and learning kind of remain the same. But where in the middle years and high school, where AI becomes more powerful, is that you can get students also to interact with the AI. So, for
Yeah.
example, like I'll give you one very specific example of something that we are working on. So, we are working on giving teachers the ability to create contextual AI tutors. So, what that means is, suppose I'm teaching about Indian history, right? And I want to uh, test my students' understanding of Gandhi, right? So I can create a tutor that acts like Gandhi, and my students can interact with them. And based on that interaction, the AI can actually also analyze how well my students have understood Gandhi as a persona. Now, this is something that you can't do with the early years. Similarly, like if I am a math teacher, I just taught a specific concept, like say trigonometry, and I want to understand whether my students did not actually got it, or they didn't get it. I can just make a tutor, and my students can interact with the tutor, and the tutor will help them, will inform me how well my students have actually understood that particular topic. So the possibilities kind of really increase when you are in the middle school, when you're a middle school or a high school teacher compared to an early years teacher.
As you were talking about AI tutors, the thing that struck me was, not everyone is as fortunate to go to a school at the caliber of Toddler's Den, right?
Yeah.
Is there a way to kind of broaden access to the best education to the most amount of kids by leveraging AI? And what are your thoughts there?
If you were to think of education as grasping knowledge and understanding knowledge, then yes, AI can be a very big equalizer in terms of access, providing more and more students access to high quality content. Every student, I'm pretty sure, if as long as they have access to any kind of device, would have access to a personal tutor. They already have, but in the future, it will get better. So that's definitely there. But I think what is really lacking is motivation and inspiration in the world at large. And that's where what I was saying earlier, the role of a teacher becomes paramount. And I don't think AI will be able to solve for that. So while it can make uh, education more accessible, if a student has the motivation, for example, what Khan Academy did in a different
Mhm.
form altogether. But if a student is not motivated, then you might have the best content, you might have the best tutors. So how will it help? Yeah.
Yeah. And then let's talk a little bit about assessments. What is the assessment and exams like in, say, let's say the IB curriculum?
Yeah.
And do you think that will change over time with things like personalization, with things like automation? What are your thoughts there?
So assessments will definitely change. So I'll talk about why they will change first, because you are, if you think of a typical assessment, or if you were to think of your school days as well, it was a common assessment designed for designed for the entire class,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
And every student has to do the same thing. Now, with a lot of assessment data being available to an AI agent in the middle, the AI agent can actually design assessments for each individual student. So, for example, Gaurav is a student in my class, and say I'm a grade 7 teacher. I am teaching about some concept in algebra, and I know that Gaurav is really interested in football and dinosaurs, right? The AI can actually make the assignment very much contextualized for Gaurav's interest and also his past performance in that particular subject. So that kind of becomes very exciting. How assessments happen right now is very standardized. I think more and more going forward, it will become more and more personalized, and that's, I think, going to be one of the most widely accepted use cases of AI in education.
But once assessment is more personalized,
Yeah,
standardization has the benefit of assessments that have a purpose of getting admission to the next level or something, right?
yeah,
Standardization has the benefit of making a decision. So
yeah.
I'm guessing there's going to be some balance between personalizing but also requiring standardized tests, right? How do you think that will shape out?
I think when I'm talking about this personalization, I'm talking about more like in an internal school context, like internal assessments that schools would do. I can think about for the next 10, 15 years, there will continue to be these standardized assessments for the very same purpose that you mentioned, which is that you want some stamp on the student, that what is their intelligence level or what is their achievement level. But I think as the world evolves, maybe we will see maybe we will see a place where those standardized tests are also not required anymore. I don't know.
Let's zoom in and talk a little bit about the Toddle solution itself. What is Toddle AI?
So Toddle, let me talk about Toddle first. So just building on what I said earlier, Toddle is a workflow platform for teachers. So teachers can do their curriculum design here, which is that they can create their lesson plans, unit plans, assessments, all of that. Then they can assign work to students, collect back work from students, give them personalized feedback on their work. All of that performance data flows into the student profile, and that student profile kind of converts into report cards, which can then be shared with families. So if you think of the core teacher workflow, this is the workflow that every teacher does now. They can, the shape and form might look different in the early years versus say in grade 11 and 12, but this is essentially what the core workflow of a teacher would look like. Now, what Toddle AI is, Toddle AI is a teaching assistant that is built on top of this workflow layer that uses third party large language models to help teachers with all of these day to day work. So, Toddle AI as a teaching assistant can help teachers design better lesson plans. So it can help it can help you brainstorm ideas. So for example, I want to introduce fractions to my students. It can help me give 5 ideas on how you can do it in an interesting way, and then it can help you create detailed lesson plans as well. Now, ChatGPT can also do this. If you are a very committed teacher, you can go to something like a ChatGPT also and interact with them. But the challenge with ChatGPT is that it's not contextual. Here,
Mhm.
Toddle AI will already know that you are a grade 5 teacher, you are teaching against these learning goals. This is your teaching style because of whatever you have done in the past with our AI. So it will create lesson plans based on your personal preferences and the context of your class, and it's embedded right into your workflow. Another use case that we address, which teachers really like, is, so teachers need to create report cards for all their students, and typically these report cards would be shared once every 3 months or once every 6 months with parents. That's the format that most schools would follow. And for teachers, a lot of effort goes into writing personalized comments for each child. Now, what Toddle AI is able to do is, because all the assessment data for a student is already there on the platform, Toddle AI can take a first pass at drafting that comment for the teachers. Teachers
Nice.
always have the flexibility to edit that, but it saves them 80 to 90% of the time that they would have spent on writing those comments manually. Another use case is teachers need to design assignments, so quizzes and stuff like that. With Toddle AI, you can generate those in, like, if it was going to take you 30 minutes, here you can literally do that in 3 to 4 minutes. So it becomes a big time saver for teachers. So my fundamental belief is, and I might be wrong here, but my fundamental belief is that AI will become really powerful uh, for anybody only if it gets embedded into your day-to-day work. If you have to access AI by going out of the of your workspace context, then it's not as valuable. So for a designer, it's really valuable. If it's getting embedded in Figma, right? So a
Yeah.
similar example I would use for teachers as well. It's really powerful if it's getting embedded into your learning management system.
Yeah, and it's part of it is the user experience because it's just part of the flow, and then part of it is you said it's the contextual relevance. And maybe a
Yes.
third point that I see, and you touched upon it, is it's an assistant at least today. So there's a human override, which is quite feasible. And as I understand it today, Toddle AI doesn't change. I mean, it may make it so that the teachers can have a better outcome faster, but it actually doesn't change the core functionality of your
Yeah.
product. Are you starting to see teachers personalize a little bit more because of Total AI beyond the comments, which are by definition personalized? But when it's
Yeah.
about creating courses, are
Yeah.
they able to now roll out in a bit more personalized way by student, or do you still think it's happening at the class level for now?
Oh, no, no. So, I mean, not every teacher is doing it, but teachers who are committed to the goal of personalization and differentiation, they are able to do it very, very meaningfully in a much faster way. So, for example, if I am designing a math lesson plan, or I'm designing say, a take home activity for my students, uh, based on the students' past performance data, I can actually create four versions of that at the click of a button, right? Depending on where the different students in my class are based on their performance. It's our workflow is not entirely seamlessly optimized for this particular use case, but we are starting to get requests from teachers that we want to be able to do this much faster than what your platform allows us to do. And that's something that we are building for.
That's cool. I'm a big believer that, if you can see some product market fit, despite fully knowing there's friction in your
Yeah.
product, that's
Yeah.
a real kind of proof point of product market fit because
Absolutely.
you're actually forcing people to go through hoops that are there, right?
Yeah.
You just haven't prioritized it in the roadmap and they're still using it and they're still
Yeah.
coming back and they're still not hating you and they're still asking for politely, please update that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
A lot of what you talked about is being, again, an aid to teachers. How do you do anything in your platform to kind of measure and help ensure that educational best practices and outcomes are followed, or best practices are followed and outcomes are achieved?
So I would say two things there. One is that the way the platform is designed, that there are certain things that teachers need to do without which they cannot really go to the next step. Uh, that kind of forces good behavior. And the other thing is that specifically on Toddle AI, the way we have prompt engineered it and the data that we have trained it on, uh, that really helps get teachers get high quality output out of it. So again, specific example, when teachers are using Toddle AI to generate lesson plans, we already have fed in about 400 to 500 high quality lesson plans across different age levels and subjects for the AI to generate meaningful outputs. The AI knows that this is what a good lesson plan looks like. Similarly, when teachers are reporting on student progress through their report cards, the AI has had about 1,000 comments being fed into it from different teachers around the world, so that it knows this is what good report card comments really looks like. So we kind of, through training our model and through providing it really good exemplars, that's how we kind of ensure that.
Great. And in terms of the data that you use to train your model,
Yeah.
is it that every 6 months you do an import of data from best practices, either through your platform or maybe other sources?
Yeah.
Or are you starting to, or have you already built in some continuous feedback loop in your product so that, when teacher is creating a lesson plan,
Yeah.
somehow you're measuring that it's a great lesson plan and then now using it to then train the models, right? What's the closed loop nature of your platform today when it comes to training models with high quality data?
Yeah. So on the earlier in the earlier thing that you mentioned regarding repeated input of data into the model, I think it was needed at an initial stage when these models were also rudimentary. But honestly, the pace at which the models are evolving, and the fact that they are getting so much better so fast, we don't need to provide any additional data. As long as you do the right prompt engineering, it will create the right output for you. With respect to the continuous feedback loop, so we don't use any of our user generated data for training. That's a very clear call out in our data security and privacy policy as well. You have to be like very particular about that when you are working with schools, because there is student data involved,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So we don't use any of the data that gets generated. However, what we do is we do take feedback from teachers on whether the quality of the output met their expectations or not, right? So teachers can do a
yeah,
basic thumbs up thumbs down sort of a thing on the quality of the output getting generated, and that for us becomes a signal to us to improve our prompts further, so that we can generate better output going ahead.
yeah. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and it's very interesting that you mentioned that. There's this classic debate that I see a lot of founders. Do I build my own models because it'll be better than GPT, well, 4 today?
Yeah.
Or do I just assume that GPT-5 will be significantly better and not bother, right?
Yeah.
And generally, and it seems like in your case, the latter is what's coming true.
My broad sense there is that in simple use cases, like I would say ours is a pretty simple, straightforward use case. Just use third party models. Anyway, the speed at which everyone is improving their models, it's just going to get better and better, and it's also going to get commoditized. So at least the way we have built our infra is that if you want to switch from one model to another, say we are using GPT 4.0 today, tomorrow we want to switch to Claude 3.5, we can do it in a matter of a couple of days. It's not going to be really hard.
Yeah. Or you may decide that for certain flows, GPT, 4.0 is better or cheaper.
Yeah,
And then for certain other flows, cloud is the better option. And that we
that's
see as a
exactly
trend
what
as
we're doing
well.
right now. So we
Yeah.
have like for different use cases, and there are certain use cases in which there is data privacy is also a bigger concern than other use cases. For those use cases, we would use one model. For another use case, we would use
Mm,
another model. So it's a mix of everything.
got it. Have you encountered any resistance as you've been incorporating AI capabilities, whether it's from the schools, teachers, parents, anyone, any of the stakeholders?
I mean, yeah, for sure. Now I think AI is uh, a bit more evolved as a topic, and people have a better understanding of it. But when it came out back in November, December 22, I don't know if you saw that, but there was this image circulating on Twitter and other social media, which was an image of mathematics teachers from 1966 protesting against the use of calculators. Right, so it
Mm,
was a similar moment that teachers in 2023 were protesting against the use of AI tools like ChatGPT. There was a lot of apprehension around it. I think now that people have gotten used to it, there is a wider acceptance of it. Having said that, there is still, I would say, two or three things which are really important. One is, like I was saying earlier, data security and privacy, especially if you are building AI tools for education. That is something that you have to be very mindful of. The second thing, AI models, even though they have gotten better, they can still tend to hallucinate. So one needs to build extra checks and balances, especially in an educational context, that the AI model is producing the right information 99.9999% of the time, especially on stuff like math and science, right? Because AI models can tend to get that wrong. So building those checks and balances to make sure that that is correct. And the third thing I would say is generally around training. Like if you are building AI models for teachers, training of not the model but of the teachers, having like very open-ended communication, showing them how it can help them. That's how we have done. And initially there was resistance, but now we have a large number of our schools
yeah.
using our AI as well.
And I'm guessing the resistance is a little bit lesser because, again, as you mentioned earlier, your platform is interacting with the teachers, not
Yeah.
the students.
Yeah.
And it'll be less because there's this concept of other students learning is much lower.
Yeah.
And second, by definition, you have some human in the loop, which is the teachers reviewing.
Yes.
If there are some errors, hallucinations, you have human review, right?
Yeah.
Which I think, as we kind of look at the AI opportunity set, definitely think about what's the impact of an error, right? And if it's lower, obviously it's easier for adoption. Great. Now, I think majority, maybe around 95% of your customers are from outside of India, yet you're based in India, and I believe most of your team is.
Yes.
I'd love to kind of share some insights. You've built, now you've got thousands of customers. Like how do you build a global business in India, and are there any best practices that you can share?
So I would say that in our specific case, what has really helped us is that we have a really deep understanding of the teacher persona and how a school functions. And what we have realized is that even though there might be geographical nuances, but schools around the world work in similar ways. So, which means that teachers around the world will have similar workflows and similar needs from a technology platform. So that obviously needs to be there. Like your product needs to appeal to a global audience. Like if you build something in India, which is a very India specific use case, then obviously you can't take it out. So for us, I think that at a fundamental level was addressed. Again, it was serendipity. It was not addressed by design or anything, because we were building it out as a passion project to solve for our own problem. But over a period of time, we realized that the core workflows kind of remain the same. For us, what has also helped is that the teacher persona around the world is similar. Persona not just in terms of the workflow, but in terms of their personality, and the fact that they are open to new ideas, open to they're very empathetic people in general, really nice people who are in it to do well. And therefore they typically won't see that, hey, this is a company from an X country or a company from Y country, as long as they see that the intent is right on the part of the people behind the software. They would engage with you. So those kind of things helped us. In terms of specific things that we have done, I'm again going back to my teachers first. I think if you are truly obsessed about the customer, then you can take the business anywhere. So but going back to our teachers first core value, everyone in our team except for design and engineering, because design and engineering are hard skill set, everyone else is a teacher. Our marketing team is pretty much entirely teachers. The content team is entirely teachers. All of our
Nice.
sales team is ex teachers. All of our customer success team is ex teachers. So we have kind of made sure that we are a team of teachers who are serving teachers, and that really helps with no matter where in the world you go. The other thing, like tactically, what we have done is we have built out sales teams in different parts of the world. So we have sales folks in the Americas region, in Europe, in Middle East, in Southeast Asia, in Australia. So the sales team is small, but it is fairly widely distributed, so that they can handle demos, in insane hours. They don't have to wake up at like 1 a.m. to be able to do a demo. So that's something that we have done. Other than that, I would say a few things. And this again, we are also very design first. So like building beautiful things is again a part of our core value. And because if you look at our website also, and the way the branding is done, all of those things, it always has had a global appeal, because it's been done with some sort of finesse. And I would credit Gautam, who's my younger brother and co-founder, to that. So therefore, the company has had a pretty global appeal. Like it doesn't look like
Yeah.
a shabbily done product. It's just very global in nature right from day one.
And I think one thing that you mentioned, which was just amazing to hear, is just the domain experts. Is not just your wife and her family as the co-founder, but sales team,
Yeah.
customer success, marketing
Yeah.
are all educators and teachers, which talk
Yes.
about empathy for the end customer.
Yeah.
That's great. Any other tips and tricks in running a vertical focus company? Now, again, you said multiple times the domain expertise, but
Yes.
anything beyond that?
I think so. From a product standpoint, the for us, the biggest learning has been that understand your users very well and obsess over them uh, time and time again. Like be very receptive to feedback. All the basic things that one would assume. It's just that sometimes the commonsensical things don't get executed. And you just need to make sure that you are executing on them. The other thing that I have realized, especially from a GTM standpoint, in a vertical business, is that usually verticals will have watering holes where people will get together. So no matter which vertical you are building for, there will be watering holes where people will get together, and these watering holes could be digital or they could be physical in nature. So for example, we have been immensely benefited by, so we serve IB schools. IB hosts these global conferences where IB schools from all around the world will come together, and being an exhibitor there just gives you access to all of those schools in a really quick way. Similarly, a lot of teachers around the world are connected with each other on Facebook communities, on LinkedIn communities. So proactively leveraging those. And if you are finding that there are no watering holes, then actually in vertical SaaS, it could be a really good opportunity to create a watering hole as well, which is something that we are trying to do in one of the markets that we are playing in, where we have realized that there is no large community of teachers that exists. So we are thinking, can we actually build that community? And yeah.
And I was just going to, that ties back to the comment at the kind of top of this podcast about being entrenched in the communities, right?
Yeah.
And that's great. Well, this has been fantastic. Deepanshu, thanks so much for doing this. Maybe to end off, where can our listeners learn more about Toddle and stay updated with the latest developments?
So we are fairly active on social media, both Instagram and LinkedIn. So if people follow us there, they'll be able to learn everything about whatever we are doing.
And the website is toddleapp.com.
Toddleapp.com. Toddle.com was not available when we were building the product. So we went for toddleapp.com. Yeah.
Deepanshu, such a pleasure. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me, Gaurav. It was great chatting with you.